councillors, officers, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the Mayor of Bournemouth.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all nice and warm on this lovely evening. I just need to read a statement. I would like to welcome Charter Trustees to this meeting of the Bournemouth Charter Trustees and to the press and members of the public. Any press here? I can't see it. Please note that this meeting is being recorded live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to assure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules for speaking. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand. Where there appears to be a consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands. Before we start the business on the agenda, as you know, the Charter Trustees is a non-political body with the primary objective of being to maintain and promote the historic and ceremonial traditions of Bournemouth. I'm keen that we work together to maintain this objective. Item 1, apologies. Are there any apologies, please?
Mr. Mayor, apologies have been received from Councillor Allen, Councillor Bull, Councillor Iyengar, Councillor Rigby and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Item... Oh, sorry. Yep.
Could I add apologies from Councillor Andrews and Councillor Brown, please?
Likewise, if I may add apologies for Councillor Allison and Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also apologies from Councillors Rampton and Mellor.
Thank you. Yes, Jane.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Dunlop.
Okay, thank you. Any other apologies? Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest?
None have been received to date.
Item 3 on the agenda, confirmation of the minutes and matters arising from the previous meeting. Has anybody any comments on the minutes of the last meeting? It's a nice meeting, isn't it? It's quick, good. We're all cold, we go home early. Can I therefore put it to a formal vote? Is everybody prepared to accept the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you. Right, item 4 is the Charter Mayor's excuse me, report. You ready for this? Have you wake me up when I'm finished? I've got a list here. Do you realise since the last meeting in October, I've done over 60 engagements. It's really fabulous. I've got a really interesting one tomorrow before I go through this stuff. A couple of weeks ago, Maris and I went to a care home, which is just round the corner, where a lady was 100 years old. Fantastic, 100 years old. Amazing stuff. With a card from the King and the Queen Consort. And she had people there from all over the country and all over the world had come to celebrate extended family, Australia, North America, etc., etc. Really lovely. This afternoon, I got a phone call from Hazel, the same care home as another lady who was 100 tomorrow. So within a week, I'm going to see two people, two ladies, who are 100 years old. Fantastic. What a wonderful thing to do. And it's really nice to see somebody, although this particular lady I've seen last time, and the one I'll see tomorrow is 100, they're obviously in wheelchairs, but the lady I've seen last week, 100% there, absolutely on the ball, knows everything that's going on. So it's a fabulous, fabulous achievement. I'll just give you a couple of details of other stuff I have done. In October, I visited the Coast Guard station at the top of Hengsley Head. If anybody knows it, is Eddie here, is he? Yeah, Eddie. Yes, yeah. That's a fabulous station, looks out for people who are in distress in the bay, and it liaises quite closely with the HM Coast Guard and the police, so they do a super job. In October, I also went to the Black History Month at the Hilton. That was interesting. That was quite some really interesting speakers at that. In November, I went to, which is in my ward, if anybody knows the Tavern Pub on the Grove, where they were trying to collect £5,000 for a young boy who suffers from cerebral palsy to get him into buy him an automatic electric wheelchair. So that was fabulous. Obviously in November we all did, most of us did the Remembrance Sunday. I also did the Salvation Army Remembrance, which was a few days later. And one final one, which in December, which I really enjoyed, or we both really enjoyed, we went to the, if you know Boscombe, the Samaritans place in Boscombe, which is at the back of the Sovereign Centre, where on Christmas Day, where we got there at just after 12 o'clock, and to help people serve dinners to people who are homeless, people who are lonely. And there must have been about 100 people in the room on various tables. And that was fabulous. Spent about 2 hours with those people. They wanted to give us Christmas dinners, but we didn't have any. I didn't want to end up like the Vicar of Dilby full of Brussels sprouts, but it was interesting. And it was fabulous to sit down with people who, a lot of them are quite lonely, and they spend all their time on their own, but that was a fabulous opportunity for them to all come together and meet several people. So that was really interesting. So far it's been an exciting year, and interesting, really interesting. Confirmation Ministry report. Right. I now return to item 5, the report of the Civic Working Group, which the Deputy Mayor, Mr Kelsey, will present the report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Members will remember that at the last meeting it was decided that we should have a Civic Working Group set up to go through a few of the issues that have come to light over the course of the last couple of years. Some of the things that we talked about on this, it was very helpful. We talked about the remembrance events and any slight changes, and we took on board the remarks that people have made about how it was run, and there'll be a few minor amendments to that. We agreed to have a civic events matrix, which we took part in last week with the chairman, deputy chairman, mayors of Poole, etc. And that's still an ongoing working document at the moment, but that will come through as and when it is finished. We talked about, again, the extra links for the mayoral chains, and I know Hazel's been working very hard to get the best prices for those because they're well out of date now. In fact, they haven't been replaced or updated since about 2017, so there's quite a few names missing off of there. We spoke about the civic service, whether or not we should remove it from our list of items, but it was decided that it should be retained for the time being. We talked about the Mayoress's parlour and when we would get that back in and what it would be used for. This is all obviously in the report, but the big item for us was about the upcoming coronation in May. And it was decided that we would put it to you, that we would ask you to agree that we would donate £10,000 from our budget, or from within our budget, towards any celebrations and events that Bournemouth Charter Trustees take part in. Just to let you know that Poole have agreed to do the same. So it should mean that as two Charter Trustees authorities, we could put on some very worthwhile events over that period of time. I think it's one that I would really ask you to support if we can. But it is over to you guys. You have the vote on this, and I would ask firstly if there's any comments on any of the items we've taken part in. Sue.
Thank you. Very informative. Just wanted to say that...
Sue, put your mic on.
Oh, sorry, yes. Sorry. I will stand too. Just that, having been Mayor 2019, I'm not in the photos. Is there a plan for, I think there's myself, yourself, David, and now Councillor Lawton. So there's 3 now. What are the plans? That's all I'm asking, please.
There are plans to put the photos up when we get through. At the moment, as you know, the corridor downstairs is still being changed around, and we've still got to find room, and some of the older photographs may have to be moved or shunted along a little bit to get the newer photographs in. And then there's a possibility that once the Mayoress's parlour is back up, that the photos can be put up in the Mayoress's parlour.
Thank you.
So
I'd like to
they're not going to be scrapped, they're not going to disappear.
Thank
People
you.
will be able to have their pictures up at some
And
stage.
thank you for bringing up to date the listings of names on the other boards.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? In which case, could I go to a vote to members to agree on the £10,000 donation from the budget, please? All those in favour, yeah? That is carried. Thank you very much, members. Hang on. We did have one nice comment at that meeting, and that was from Councillor Anne. Anne, would you like to speak about your dedication of thanks to the staff and the team, mayoral team, etc.? I have it on here. That Anne Fowler made work-ins to say thank you for the work that the team does for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. Well, I wasn't expecting to speak, but as a result of the meeting that we went to, the team have done a fantastic job over the past year. And particularly, I know some people weren't happy with Remembrance Sunday, but I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And compared with the year before, it went very smoothly, and it was in my opinion, it was very, very good. Some people find the walk to the tennis courts a bit far, but I thought it was dignified, and it avoided having to walk up and down steps for some of the veterans. And as you so often point out, David, the whole point of Remembrance Sunday is for the veterans and for us to honour the work that they did and the sacrifices that have been made. I think that the team, which is operating the mayoralty at the moment, is the best that we've had for a long, long time. Everything is going very well. I think the dignity has returned. Unfortunately for previous mayors, COVID really messed everything up, and it was very difficult to operate without being here in person. And now I think it's all coming back, and it's being really good. I'd just like to make a vote of thanks to all of them for all the work that they do to preserve what's a very important part of our town, which is the Charter Trustees and the Mayoralty and the Office of Mayor. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anne. And one last thing, it's recommended that the Civic Working Group be delegated authority to agree a programme of events and expenditure from within the budget for the coronation and other items. Do members agree to that? Yep. Thank you very much. And back to the Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I now call upon Matthew to read and go through the budget for 23-24. Please, Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Charter Trustees. So, the report starts off with an in-year update from October last year. We're currently forecasting underspend of just over 16,000, and that's set out in Appendix A to the report. Also in Appendix A is the proposed budget for 23-24 with a council tax requirement of £147,091. We had a budget workshop December last year where we discussed a number of items within the budget. And there's a couple of changes just to highlight. We've reduced the hospitality budget from 12,000 to 10,000, just as a reflection of the activity on that budget for the last few years. The recharges between the council and the Charter Trustees have increased slightly, because that's a reflection of higher staffing costs at the council. We've increased the income in regards to investment income from the unspent reserves of the Charter Trustees because of higher interest rates and higher returns from the Treasury team at the council. And as we just mentioned around the coronation budget, we have a one-off 10,000 budget to support those activities, and they're to be fully funded from reserves, so it won't cause a spike in the council tax requirement. So on reserves, we started the year just shy of 58,000. With that 16,000 going in, takes us to over 74,000, which is still 50% of our precept demand. So with £10,000 coming out of that next year, there's sufficient level of reserves there to support any one-off activities or any unforeseen events. So moving to council tax, the tax base for the Bournemouth area has increased for 23-24 by over 900 properties. So that has the advantage of us being able to levy the precept over more properties, which reduces the council tax demand or the Band D charge. So the council tax requirement for 23-24, taking into account all those changes I just set out and the increase in the tax base, sets the Band D charge at £2.27, which is a reduction of 4 pence, or 1.8%. So happily take any questions, Mr. Mayor, on that.
At £2.27, I think it's a really good value. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to congratulate the officers on managing to get a budget where we're having a reduction in this time of austerity and record my thanks for them. And may that be recorded in the minutes, please.
Do we need to vote on that? I assume we're all in agreement with that? No problem? Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is a brief update for trustees. Hopefully trustees will remember the previous risk register was determined at the meeting in January of 2022. Broadly, similar risks in this one. Only some slight amendments which you can find in paragraph 3 of the report, namely a slight reduction in the risk associated with the historical and ceremonial assets, as annual asset checks are now being done, the most recent being in January of this year. Transition of COVID-19, we've reduced very slightly on the basis that vaccinations and boosters are slightly more widespread now. And the budget has also been reduced due to the fact that we are now undertaking regular working groups on the budget. Again, the previous one was held on the December, as Matt referred to in his report. So it is open to comment and review, but more importantly, approval, please. Thank you.
Mark. I'll have to put me hearing aid in again. Can I thank everybody who took part in the checking out the risk register, which I took part in. It's interesting to be rummaging around in corners, wasn't it, Richard? And but I think we found most everything that should be there was there. So thank you very much for all those who participated in that. Anne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've just got a question about that risk register. I was taking part in it, and it was a real eye-opener to see how much stuff is stored in funny places, never see the light of day, from the caged room right opposite the Mayor's parlour to round the corner in strong rooms and all sorts of places. Is there perhaps it's a controversial question, but is there any point in keeping stuff that no one ever sees and no one ever wants, and cups for long past achievements and such like? I assume they have to be insured, especially some of the silver items, and I wonder if that should be something we should look at in the future.
Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Anne that it's a shame we're not seeing things, but I think the answer is not to get rid of it because it's our history. but I think the idea should be maybe we should get to some small exhibition of what we've got that can be shown some of the better items and rotate them. I think that might be a better idea.
Nigel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did the inventory last year with Councillor Borthwick, and I too, Councillor Filer, was astounded at the breadth and quality of some of the items that are completely out of sight. Because of my business, obviously I get overexcited when I see massive silver cups, and most of those that are in there, I would hazard a guess at one point were probably worth at least £10,000 each. Even worked over, if you could find a market for them through the few silversmiths that are left working, some of those trophies would command a huge amount of money if they were deemed no longer needed for our purposes. But like the one or two that are in the Mayor's Parlour, like the Bowls Cup that Bournemouth Chamber presented over 105 years ago, it is the history of our town, and certainly when it comes to bowls and golf and some of the sports that, you know, we've had a fabulous facility for in this town, I would love to see some of those on show just somewhere. Maybe if it was a revolving exhibition at the BIC or here, or special occasions. When it comes to all the papers, books, and I certainly know there's an awful lot of books, again, I'm very, very loath to throw or see books thrown away. It obviously depends what the book's on about. But certainly what we saw, Councillor Borthwick, I think you'll agree, some very impressive stuff. So I would agree with Councillor Filer that if there was a way, when buildings works are completed, and if there's a room that could have a revolving exhibition or something, or maybe working with PH Live or the BIC, it'd be amazing just to see the history and wealth that's reflected in this town's history, just from some of the artefacts that we possess. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I wouldn't want us to get rid of it, because I agree with Mark. It is the history of the town. And I also, Nigel has made some really good points. I think what I'll do is we'll take it as an action point for Graham to take away to see if there's any way in which we could build a cabinet, display units or whatever to display some of the, and some of the stuff is lovely. And a lot of records there, charters and pieces of bits of paper. I wouldn't want to lose them, but they are the history of the town. And it would make a good point, actually, or a centre point, if you like, for school children, when they come to visit the town hall, to be able to see some of this stuff, which goes back a few hundred years or whatever. And why not introduce them to history of the town? Sue.
As being Mayor, I would say that there's records of flights that took place, how many miles they did, records of books that are very, very precious. And also when you say about schools, there is so much history steeped in the records that are there. So I think very carefully it's got to be looked at, please. And also the diaries of the people who have visited the town hall from bygone days. I think we're 200 years old, is that correct? So there must be more than that. So there must be signatures within. And I know the Queen, Prince Philip, etc. are within. So I think we need to be very careful. Thank you.
I agree with the books which have the signatures in. The Queen Elizabeth, King Edward, King George, Montgomery, Eisenhower. The list goes on, and why not display those signatures for people within Bournemouth and the surrounding area to be able to view? They are quite valuable, but why not let people see those signatures? The other day I had a group of Costa Rican students into the Mayor's Parlour, ranging from 14 to 17 years of age, and they were enthralled with the history of the parlour and the history of the town hall. In fact, one of the students asked me if I'd ever met the Queen, which, well, I've seen her walk by me, but I've never actually met her. So yeah, we should look to see if there's any way in which we could display some of those items, because they are the history of the town. Is that register approved, by the way? Thank you. I'll now move on to item 8, the appointment of the position of Mayor of Bournemouth for call upon Neil Fraser, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, just the final item of the night, just to congratulate Councillor Roberto Rocca as appointed by way of uncontested nomination to the role of Mayor for Bournemouth for the period 23-24.
I put it to the trustees. Is that approved? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, just for the voice. I think it would be a big honor to be the mayor for Bournemouth next year. I moved to the UK in 2013, and I elected Bournemouth to be my town. So I live, work, and I got all my life here, and represent the town. Even, my origin is a European country, so I think would be the first time for a mayor of Bournemouth to be from a European country, and that will be very important to show how we welcome people here and how people can join our town, our life, and then to be part of our country. I'm British as well since 2019, so I'm British, Italian, and it would be an immense privilege to be the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto, and congratulations. You'll enjoy yourself, a new king when you're mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, councillors, trustees, that is, unless anybody's got any AOB, I like my meetings quick. Good evening, good night, and enjoy the freezing cold.